Sex. Let's talk about sex. It's a topic that we love to talk about, but it's so much that's involved when you start talking about sex. For example, is there any sexual trauma that you have? Is there any sexual trauma that your spouse has? What are your expectations of sex? I hate to go here, but if you were someone who participated and dove into corn, I know what I'm talking about. You may have a warped or a perverse idea of what sex is supposed to be. Being able to have that conversation and have a healthy conversation about sex and even understanding why sex. A marriage is not even a marriage unless it's consummated. In other words, unless you have sex. Hey family, welcome back to Preparing Men for Marriage. This is the channel where you get advice on how to prepare for marriage, but also just get regular marriage advice. In this episode today, we will be covering topics that every couple should discuss in premarital counseling. Before we jump in, we would like to ask that you consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, sharing out this episode with anybody who you feel could get value from it. All right, so let's jump right into it. I've got a few topics that you should discuss in premarital counseling. The first one, understanding the purpose of marriage, right? And in this, it's really kind of the conversation of how you view it. Some of us view marriage in a very idolatrous way, while the purpose of marriage is for it to be viewed as a covenant between male and female. But again, this is a very important thing to look at because depending on how you view marriage could also dictate how you've prepared for it. If you view marriage as this fairy tale, then more than likely you haven't done the preparation that you need to in order to understand what marriage is, the purpose of it, and how you can be successful in it, okay? Just being ready to run to the altar without the preparation means that you kind of have an idolatrous view of marriage. So that's one of the topics that should be discussed in premarital counseling if you even understand what marriage is. The second thing is this, love. Fellas, if you are going to get married, it is the greatest sacrifice that you will make. Why? Number one, the Bible says that you should love your wife like Christ loved the church. That is the greatest sacrifice that has ever been made. And we have a form of that by laying down our egos, by protecting this woman at all costs. When we look at the idea of love, God's requirement of love is very different from what a lot of us understand love is. Okay, so I like to split it up in two, right? What is the basic way that we should love as humans, but also what does God require me? What is the way in which He requires me to love my wife? That's very important for you to understand. Okay, so that is another premarital counseling topic that should be discussed. Sex. Let's talk about sex. It's a topic that we love to talk about, but it's so much that's involved when you start talking about sex. For example, is there any sexual trauma that you have? Is there any sexual trauma that your spouse has? What are your expectations of sex? I hate to go here, but if you were someone who participated and dove into corn, I know what I'm talking about. You may have a warped or a perverse idea of what sex is supposed to be. So many places to go here, but another area, and this is more for my ladies, is withholding sex is not good. It's not godly. It's not biblical. But I also, on the flip side, for the fellas, I would suggest this. You should not force yourself on your wife. Even though the Bible does say that the woman's body is the husband's and the husband's body is the wife's, there should be a level of compassion. Maybe she's tired. Maybe she's not feeling well. Whatever it may be, there's a balance to this thing. So again, being able to have that conversation and have a healthy conversation about sex and even understanding why sex. A marriage is not even a marriage unless it's consummated. In other words, unless you have sex. Okay, that's after marriage. All right, so let's talk about sex. That is something that should be discussed in premarital counseling. Another thing that should be discussed in premarital counseling are finances, okay? What is your credit score? How much do you guys make? Do you have a budget? Do you use a budget? Do you have any investments? Do you have children? Because that will impact your finances. What are your financial goals for the next 5 years? How much do you plan on spending on the wedding? One of the biggest things when you talk about finances, especially for us fellas, is how well do you steward them? Do you make a lot of money, but you still live paycheck to paycheck? Do you make great money, but you don't have savings? Like, those are all things that should be discussed. The next thing is communication. There are 4 different types of communication styles. I would encourage you to get my book because I talk about it in there. But the other thing is, how do you want to be communicated with? How does she want to be communicated with? I'm going to make this statement. A lot of us talk to our spouses in ways in which we would not talk to our managers. And I think that sets the tone for the respect level there. You should not talk to your boss better than you talk to your spouse. But being able to be careful with your tone. So one of the things I talk about with my wife, and one of the things of feedback that is very important for me to consider, is my tone. The next thing, conflict resolution. Are you someone who has an effective way of dealing with conflict? We used to say in the beginning of our marriage, and we used to wear it as a crown, oh, we don't argue, we don't argue. And some years went by, and that started to change, that started to turn. Now, not an unhealthy arguing, but disagreements. And what you realize is when you're really communicating the way that you should, there's going to be some conflict. There's going to be ways in which you don't see things eye to eye. But the most important thing is, how well do you deal with conflict resolution? Are you able to say, you know what, this is a conflict that we have, we're not seeing eye to eye, but you're not my enemy, so I need to deal with this in a manner in which we communicate properly with one another. Another topic is children. Do you have children? If you have children, are they your children biologically? That conversation. If they are your children biologically, okay, how is life going to change now since we're married? If you do not have children, it's, do we want to have children? When do we want to have children? Do we want to adopt? There's so many things to talk about. Another thing to discuss is purpose. Kind of talked about it when we, initially started talking. Purpose is, okay, why did God put us together? And once we have an idea of why we've been put together, what we can do to make sure that we fulfill the purpose that we've been called to do in this marriage. That is a big thing, because that will direct moves and how you go about your relationship, because you know, hey, this is what we have a goal, and we need to be very cognizant of how we approach that goal. Another thing is self-evaluation, right? Being able to look at yourself and say, what can I do to present my best self? How can I work on myself so that I'm better for her? Your future spouse, your future wife should be asking the same questions, right? It's not a competition, but we need to be better for each other. And when we're better for each other, we can be better for our children, we can be better for the world, we can be better for our family. Another topic are boundaries. There are particular boundaries that should be put in a marriage. Maybe there are sexual boundaries, maybe there are family boundaries, maybe there's so many areas, boundaries with friends, so many different areas where you can go, where boundaries should be instituted. Again, I talk about boundaries in my book. You might want to make sure that you pick that up. This is a big one. Another topic is divorce. I think this is a great question. What would cause you to consider divorce? It's a great question that we should ask, right? And we should discuss. If it's cheating, what do you consider cheating? But I'm going to say this. Divorce should not be an option. Hear me out. That being said, 2 things I'll say. We should also not do things that would cause for there to be the need for divorce to even be a topic. But the other thing too is that we should not look to divorce anytime we are uncomfortable in the relationship. Okay, so I'm saying divorce should not be an option, but it should not be an option because of those 2 things that I just mentioned. But this should be discussed, because it should really be ironclad that we did not get into this relationship for it to end. Okay, and that is the purpose of covenant. Covenant should not be broken. Last but not least, another topic that should be discussed in premarital counseling is marital support. In my book, I call it having a marriage mentor. Now, this is very important, because in today's world, we know that divorce Divorces are extremely high, okay? And I always go back to this. There's a famous singer and actor, and his ex-wife said, if she had have had the right people around her, she was doing a lot of talking with lawyers and things. She was very emotional, but if she had the right people around her, she would not have gotten a divorce. Point is when you have the right people around you, you have a marriage mentor, you have marital support, you're surrounded by other people who are married, okay? Those are all things that help you stay married. When you're thinking about a divorce and you go talk to your boy who's been married 10 years, 8 years, 5 years, and you're in your first year, how did they overcome some of the toughest times in their marriage? Marital support. So listen, guys, we've talked about multiple topics that should be discussed during premarital counseling. Again, I think we have to get out of the habit of rushing couples to the altar and leaving them there. Spending more time in premarital counseling, allowing it to be very comprehensive and allowing it to cover everything that's going to be covered and dealt with in marriage. Now, am I saying that just because you go through a comprehensive premarital counseling curriculum, for lack of better terms, that divorce is inevitable or that the relationship is going to be great or perfect? I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that we should prepare couples better. Maybe you're someone who's looking to get married or looking to pop the big question very soon, my guy, and my encouragement to you is find someone that can do premarital counseling with you. Find someone who's going to give you the tools that you need, because this is one of the best tools, if done properly, that you should have. Maybe you may take this video, take down some notes and say, hey, I want to talk about everything that was in this video. I want to talk about these topics. If you know anybody who can get value from this, I strongly urge you to share this with them, all right, so that they can utilize this as a tool. And since you've made it this far, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel, hit that bell notification so that you can get notified whenever the next video comes out. And we look forward to you being on this journey with us so that we can help you prepare for marriage and also give marriage advice. Take care and see you on the next episode.